Good afternoon. Big welcome to everyone today for the Meet the Professionals Charities event. Great to see so many students on the call, and thank you very much, first of all, to our wonderful alumni panel who've kindly given up their time to speak with you today. You have a really unique opportunity today to ask our alumni questions about their experience of working life. So please do have a think about what you might want to ask them during the course of today's session. You'll find a handout for today's event uploaded to the handout section, which has the alumni's LinkedIn and or contact details in, so you may want to download that during the webinar today so you can access it afterwards. We'll also be uploading a recording of the webinar to the University of Manchester Careers Service YouTube in a few days, so please look out for that if you want to re-watch any of the session or recommend to a friend. You'll also be able to find on YouTube all the careers events from this semester so far, and as a reminder, you can sign up for future sessions on Careers Link. The Careers Service is available to support you online with a wide range of events and resources, and you can also book career guidance appointments and applications advice to get support with your CV and cover letter and applications. I'm now going to pass on to my colleague Emma Routh from DDAR, and she will explain more to you all about how the event will work today.
Thanks, Delia. Thanks for coming to our session today, everybody. You might have been able to notice that we've got a bit of a technical problem today in the fact that you can't see any of our panelists' videos. We've just been having some technical problems, which is why the event started a little bit late as well. So unfortunately, it's going to be an audio-only event, but we've still got some great panelists, and who are going to be able to share some great insights with you. So to get things started, I'm Emma Routh from the Alumni Relations team, and we run events like this throughout the year, which either focus on a particular employment sector, like charities, or a degree subject. And this gives students the opportunity to ask alumni about their career journey since graduation. We're always really grateful to our alumni who come back to support our students, and we hope that some of you in the audience might also come back and share your experience after you graduate. We have some really fantastic alumni on this panel today who have volunteered to come and share their experiences with you this afternoon. They're all working in the charity sector, so they know exactly what it's like to be in your shoes and be able to offer some excellent advice about your next steps. In a minute, I'm going to ask our alumni to introduce themselves with their name, what they studied at Manchester, and what they do now. And then we'll move on to a few questions from the audience. We started a little bit late, so if the alumni panel are happy to, we might be able to extend the event to about 10:01, but we'll see how it goes, okay? So if you have a question for the panel during the session, just type it in the chat box, and we should be able to get around to it during the session. If you have a question for a particular panelist, make sure that you include their name, so we'll be able to make sure we ask the right person. You can see what organisations each of the panelists work for and their job titles to give you an idea if you want to ask them a particular question. All right, so we'll try and get through as many questions as we can, but if we aren't able to ask a question within the hour, the alumni panelists are all open to connecting with them via LinkedIn and are happy to answer any questions you may have after the session. There's a student information pack which should have been uploaded, or we'll send round afterwards with those details, so you'll be able to ask any questions you might think of afterwards if you have any. Now I'm going to hand over to the panelists to introduce themselves. So because I can't see everybody, I'm going to go with what I see on the slide. So I'm going to start with Cara.
Hello everyone. My name's Cara. So I studied at Manchester. I did a master's in poverty and development and graduated in 2015. And I then worked at a number of charities, including the British Red Cross, and I currently work for PumpAid as the fundraising and communications manager.
Great, thanks, Cara. Lauren, over to you.
Hi everyone, hopefully you can all hear me. So I studied law, undergraduate in law at Manchester. I graduated in 2016 and now I work for Invisible Manchester, which is part of Invisible Cities, and yeah, I'm the business development officer.
Great, thanks Lauren. And Hannah?
Hi, I'm Hannah Shepherd. I did my Masters in International Development in Social Policy and Social Development. And scarily, I graduated in 2011. I work at Plan International UK as a Senior Philanthropic Partnerships Officer, which basically means securing major gifts for the charity from people that are able to give anything from £5,000 up to £1 million and more plus.
That's great, thanks Hannah. And Mike, you next.
Yeah, hi. So I graduated back in 2001, quite a while ago now, with an MSc in marketing from it was Manchester School of Management at the time, which is now part of your uni. And I've worked for Oxfam just over 2.5 years, but my background's quite varied. So I've worked in live music, theatre, digital marketing, media, publishing, education, and online learning. And it's quite different because my role involves running the whole supporter experiences, challenge events, and festival volunteering.
Great, thanks Mike. Russell?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Russell, and I graduated back in 2005. Also, like Mike, from the School of Management, I did the Management Sciences degree. So I currently am the Community and Events Manager at Dogs Trust. And again, with some similarities to Mike, I look after all the team that helps with all the marathon runs, the cycle events and the challenges, and anyone who does things in their communities for the charity on our behalf. So, you know, the Captain Toms of the world that we all hope for, but often involving dogs.
Oh, great, thanks. Kat?
Hi everyone. So I graduated back in 2011, so again a little while ago, and I studied music at Manchester as well. I work for Beat, which is the UK's eating disorder charity, and head up our campaigns, public affairs and policy department, so a very varied job. Like a few people, I've done a few varied roles before I got to this position, sort of varying from sort of the more politics side of things, but also working for a few charities as well.
Great, thanks Kat. And last but not least, Kate.
Hi everyone. My name is Kate. I studied biology at the University of Manchester and graduated in 2016. My current role works with businesses in the East Cheshire area who would like to fundraise for our local hospice, which is East Cheshire Hospice. So I manage that corporate fundraising strategy. I've worked in charities for 4 years now, so ever since graduating, I went straight into the charity sector. So happy to give as much advice as I can about that.
Great, thanks everyone. So to kick things off, I'm going to ask each of you to just give us a little overview of like a typical day or week in your role, so we can get a flavour about what it is you do at your organisations. And just a note to the students in the audience, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat box, and we can get to those after everybody's told us a bit about their role. So Cara, I'm going to start with you again, if that's okay.
Yes, of course. So my role, just kind of in summary, so I manage all of the fundraising for Pump Aid. So that's everything from major donors to corporate partners to trusts and foundations, as well as individual givers. And on the communication side, that's everything from the website, social media, newsletters, reporting. And so it's quite a varied role, which is absolutely amazing. And in answer to the question, it really does mean that every day is different. I know that sounds really cliched, but it really, really is. And so, you know, one day it might be speaking to lots of corporate partners, another one it might be writing trust applications, it might be speaking with our program teams in Malawi. And that's a really, really great thing as well about working for a small organisation, is the ability to get involved in lots of different areas. So at the moment, one of the main things I'm kind of focusing on is the Big Give. So that's a match funding campaign. So lots of work going into that, again, with all of our different income sources and all different supporters. So I hope that answers the question, and I'm happy to, you know, expand on that further if that would be useful. But it's just very varied.
Thanks, Cara. Lauren, you next.
Yeah, so kind of similar to Cara really. So I work for Invisible Manchester, and we're actually a social enterprise, and we train people who have been affected by homelessness to become walking tour guides of the city centre. So my title is Business Development Officer, And what I do is kind of everything outward facing. So outward facing communications, social media, coming up with new creative campaigns. Obviously, in light of COVID-19, we're not able to do our tours at the moment, so a lot of the guides that we work with, who are obviously vulnerable adults, we're trying to figure out different ways that they can still generate an income through us. So my role's kind of shifted quite a lot in the last few months into creating these kind of new creative ways that we can still keep the guides involved, but then also generate a bit of an income as well. So the biggest thing that we're working on at the moment is all the Christmas campaigns, which is really, really exciting. We're doing a huge advent calendar, and I get to coordinate the volunteers and yeah, basically just help to run loads of different projects that are going to help our business grow.
Great, thanks, Lauren. Hannah, over to you.
Hi, so I also work in an income generating role for a charity. So I am I manage a team of 3 fundraisers at Plan International. So Plan International is a leading international children's rights charity which promotes the advancement of girls and girls' rights overseas and in the UK. So within our team of 3, really, we work very closely with our prospect researcher, who helps us work with people who would be able to give at a higher level. So as I said before, that's people that can give £5,000 plus to charity. We work really closely with our programme development team in the UK that help us develop programmes and insights and ways of working with over 50 countries around the world. That also involves us compiling reports about the projects. It also helps us with campaigning as well. We have a separate campaigns team that does a lot of our campaigning work, which you might have seen. And I guess my day-to-day job is a lot of the time spent donor facing. So I speak to a lot of people who are supporting our work currently or would be interested in supporting some of our projects and programmes in the UK or overseas. That involves lots of negotiation, as you can imagine, with a lot of the big figures that I deal with. So that's negotiation within the organisation over what's our priorities, what we can and can't fund. Again, with donors, where they would best like to invest their money and their donation with Plan, and how they can maximise the impact they want with their philanthropy. It also involves negotiation, a lot of discussion with senior management, so with our chief executive, with our head of finance, with trustees. I spend a lot of time with our trustees as well, and really just getting to know what our organisation does and how we ways work, and just feeling inspired really day to day for why I do my job.
Great, thanks, Hannah. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, so my role involves a mix of fundraising and engagement activity. I lead a team of 9, and in a normal year, we'll be out on site at 20 festivals. So we have about 6,500 volunteers that we take to festivals like Glastonbury, Boomtown, Download, Reading, some of the smaller ones like Beat Herder. And we run the operation basically so the festival can fulfill their licensing obligations. And then, so it's quite operationally focused, working with the clients, negotiating on contracts and fees and things like that. So we provide like a sort of service delivery. And on the other side, we have our challenge events. So Trail Walker, which is a trek across the South Downs with the Army every year. We have about 600 teams of 4, and London Marathon. But this year, because obviously the pandemic, we've been switching a lot to virtual. So we've had a Trail Walker, which we did virtually. And at the moment, I'm working on a virtual festival called Oxjam. So I'm putting the festival program together for that and confirming the artists. So that's like a fundraising event, and that'll be next weekend. So we've had to adapt, to be honest with you, quite a lot, because obviously events haven't been able to happen this year. So there's a lot of quick thinking on your feet and just trying to adapt and hang on in there, really.
Great, thanks, Mike. Moving on to Russell.
Yeah, I'll kind of add to what Mike said. There's quite a lot of similarities, and I think day-to-day feels a bit different at the moment than it did sort of before this year. I also feel, yeah, from my perspective, the day-to-day in my past, when I didn't manage a team, was very much speaking to our supporters and all the charities I've been at. You know, it's a real pleasure just to speak to people are raising money for charity, and you know, particularly kind of those that are doing the marathon runs and going well above and beyond. And it is a really inspiring thing to be involved in, and to know that all that work is you know, helping to change the world, whichever charity you know you're working for. But I guess these days, when you do get into sort of the management positions, there's a bit more kind of internal conversations, as I think Hannah mentioned, with senior managers. At the moment, there's a lot of sort of planning and finance work as well, so putting some of the management skills that I got from university into play there. Also, a lot of external suppliers, event organisers, with, as Mike mentioned, a lot of changes to things like the London Marathon this year, and you know, it's been a real roller coaster. But generally, I'd say, you know, it is a really good, every day can be different. You know, you never know what Just Giving page or email you're going to get from someone telling you what they're going to do. And you know, for Dogs Trust, there's about 5,000 supporters a year that are wanting to fundraise for us. So between me and the team, we've just got to manage how we communicate to them, where we put our resources, and just, you know, create a really great experience for people that, you know, they deserve when they're taking on these kind of challenges and want to raise money for you, you know, with their own time and without, you know, any great reward for them. So yeah, it's a job I love, and you know, not all the time, but most of the time, and it is those amazing new pages you get created, or the email or the phone call that someone's going to tell you they're doing something exceptional that really makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks, Russell. Kath?
So I think something that Cara alluded to was about the fact that every day is different, and I think that's something that I definitely share with my role. I think it's difficult to describe kind of a kind of normal week. My week's certainly filled with sort of definitely a mixture of meetings, quite often planning meetings. So if we're sort of at the start of a new campaign that we're running, then I might sort of have meetings with a number of different people across the organisation, because it's not just about what my team is doing. It might have an impact on what our marketing department is doing, because they'll be involved in the planning and the execution of our campaign as well. But I'd also be speaking to comms, because again, we might involve the media in terms of getting the campaigns out as well. So we'll obviously kind of involve a number of different stakeholders in a number of different departments in the planning stages of campaigns. But also I'll be involved in talking to politicians as well. So quite often I'll have had in the past trips over to Westminster, but now I get the lovely experience of sitting and seeing MPs' homes on Zoom, which has been quite entertaining. But they're very important stakeholders to us. Because it's actually important that we work to change policy to get better policy for people with eating disorders. And we actually have a cross-party group, so an all-party parliamentary group on eating disorders, which BEAT provides the secretariat for. So that's basically the administrative support for that. And we're really lucky in the sense that we've got like true cross-party representation, so representation from all political parties. And you know, some of the things that that my team are involved with might be getting things like parliamentary debates, lots of questions. I mean, we had a Prime Minister's question a few weeks ago. So again, that will be something that, you know, we'll work with MPs to get that in Parliament. I manage a team of 3, but I also work very closely with our national officers up in Scotland, Wales, and we also have a person starting in Northern Ireland shortly. And it's quite important just to mention that health is devolved, so we have to adapt any campaigns that we're running so that it's applicable in the other nations of the UK as well. So we'll think about how we run our campaigns there compared to how we're running them in England. So again, that just creates important but different workloads for us as well. So as I said, it's very different. We might be doing report launches as well, and that's where our policy advisor might come into drafting those reports. It's a really varied role, but absolutely fascinating, and it's a great team of people that I work with as well. So it certainly makes the job really enjoyable.
Oh, great, thanks, Kat. And then finally over to you, Kate.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of similarities between my role and what the panelists have mentioned. I think one of the biggest differences is that I work for a smaller local charity. So I work for a local hospice, so we are just based in a particular area, which is East Cheshire. In my role, I manage the corporate fundraising strategy. So that, again, is constantly varied and a donor-facing kind of role. I work with businesses in the area who want to support us, whether that's volunteering, fundraising, gifting kind, doing any of our events, for example. So really my day could be, you know, I could have a lot of admin one day, or the next day I could be out at meetings and networking events, and I kind of communicate with everyone. So from smaller businesses to, you know, the bigger businesses that we're quite fortunate to have in our area. I work quite closely with the Chamber of Commerce to try and maximise the potential from the businesses that are members there, and with our team as well. So we have a team of about 13 fundraisers, so that covers all of our income generation and a few retail shops as well. So we are quite a tight-knit team, and I am the only corporate fundraiser, which means that I have to work closely with our community fundraisers and our event managers to make sure that we're, you know, best utilising all of our donors really. At the moment, we're working on our biggest fundraising event of the year, which is our Christmas tree collection, which fortunately we are allowed to do, which is in January. So that is a community-led event, but for example, my role in that will be helping to seek sponsorship for the event, and making sure all of our bands are sponsored, and just seeing how corporates can help with the logistics over the weekend, and volunteer as well if they want to. So yeah, it's constantly varied. I mean, no 2 days are the same. I think with COVID, it's obviously meant that we have had to shift our events to be virtual, and put out a lot of virtual fundraising support and guidance. But we are hopeful that we can get back to doing some physical fundraising soon, as I'm sure everyone else is.
Great, thanks, Kate. So this might be quite similar for quite a few of you, but so Phil, I'll start asking you each in turn, but if it is too similar, don't feel like you all have to answer this. But so a lot of the students are in the audience are asking what the recruitment process is like for charities. So I think I'll go in a different order this time. So I'll ask Kate first, if that's okay.
Yeah.
What was your experience of the application process for your role?
So mine, to be honest, it was very simple. I noted the job application on LinkedIn, and it was just a direct application on the hospice's website. I think with it being a local charity, that is a bit different. I have worked at organisations in the past where I have had to do an application and then perhaps go for a couple of interview stages where you do have presentations and against other candidates to really, you know, for them to really see who you are and, you know, what difference you can make to their organisation. But the role I'm currently in now, it was quite a simple, just an online application process. So yeah, it might be a bit different for the other panelists.
Great. Kat, have you got anything you'd like to add about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and there's a bit of advice attached to this as well, actually, because I am involved in doing a bit of mentoring, and it's something I do sort of reiterate to people when I'm giving this advice, actually. But we do have an application form, which is a fairly standard application form. But when we ask people to kind of fill in the application, the specific application section, we usually ask candidates to kind of take each bullet point on the person specification and actually essentially answer per bullet point. And you'd be amazed how many people actually don't really read those instructions carefully, and so they might, you know, copy and paste something that they'd written from somewhere else, or kind of just deviate from those instructions. And actually there's a reason that we ask for that. It helps us with our shortlisting process, but also it does sort people from, you know, being able to follow a simple instruction to other people. So I would really encourage you, if you are, you know, completing application forms, or other processes as well, to kind of really look at those instructions carefully, because it can be the difference between you getting through one stage to another. If you get past the application stage, if you are shortlisted, we do a standard interview, but very regularly we do ask people who come through to interview stage to do a presentation. and that will be something that's related to the role that they've been recruited for. We don't just randomly ask them to do a presentation for no reason. So I think, for example, when I recruited for a particular position, I think in my team, so a campaigns and engagement officer role, it was related to something that they would be doing in that role, and sort of getting them to think about those ideas that they would be bringing to that role. So we don't just kind of do it for the sake of it. It's actually getting them to think about those skills. And there will be certain other roles that they might have a more kind of a sort of task as well that could be involved in it. So I think the press officer role, we get them to sort of see how they'll handle calls coming in as well. So we'll set that sort of task up. So that it will vary if you get through to interview stage. Occasionally, if there's a second interview, we do what's known as reverse interviews. So they get to kind of interview potentially, and this tends to be for more senior positions, I have to say, but I don't think there's a reason why it should just be for more senior positions, but they might be interviewing people that they will be working with, and then potentially line managing, and then those people will feed back to the hiring manager about how they've felt that they've responded to them, and so on and so forth. So it can really vary, but it's I think certainly those processes work well, and as I said, we've got a great team here at Beat, so obviously we're doing something right.
Just realised I'm on mute. Sorry, guys. Russell, have you got anything to add about the application process at Dogs Trust?
Not much to add really, and we go through fairly standard application interview. I will echo what Kat said, particularly on some of the entry-level roles. I've had 150 plus applications for roles, and that what Kat said about structure and not being sort of too clever in how you present what we're asking for is definitely something that is a way we filter out. I think back to my first job though, which I started at a telephone fundraising agency, and I remember that was a telephone interview. So some of the interviews can be relevant for the role that you're going for, especially sort of some of those entry-level positions. And yeah, really, I think just to well, obviously I think we're going to be moving towards more sort of Zoom calls in the future. I think we're going to be more open to remote working. So I think I'm thinking back to the previous question, the day-to-day is much more Zoom meetings and online work than we ever used to have. So that's certainly going to play in the future, I think. But really, apart from that, just to repeat what Kat said, and don't overcomplicate the application, keep it simple. Don't make it too long either. 150 applications is a lot to get through, and you do need those filtering out processes. So yeah, keep it simple, straightforward, and really do follow instructions. And I think just the other key thing is, whatever your position and whatever job you're going for, do make it specific to that charity. So we do tend to see a lot of generic applications where just a couple of sentences to make it specific about why you want to work for that charity. Go on the website, just find the mission statement, something as simple as that, and just say that that's what you want to work towards. Makes us know that you have put that effort in, and it is something that you have personalized, and just that little one thing can really get you from just being missing out on an interview to getting that top shortlist to being interviewed by the charity.
Great, thanks, Russell. Mike, moving on to you. I also want to add in something that's coming to you specifically, is to add into the application process. How competitive would you say it was to get a graduate level role at Oxfam?
Yeah, we do offer, and particularly in my team, festivals and events, we have internship roles, and those kind of, if you're in a position where you can do an internship, I would really recommend it. And we basically we pay expenses, and we take the interns to the festivals, and they get a real kind of understanding of what we do. Graduate level, in terms of getting in, we do take on quite a lot of graduates. I would say the selection process, going back to Cat and Russell, there's basically at Oxfam they've got key competencies that are linked to like a leadership framework, and it's kind of getting into that mindset and thinking more quality over quantity with the application. It's different, I guess, because it's quite a large organisation. The way they recruit from one part of the organisation to another is quite different. My interview process was quite lengthy, and there's quite a lot of people I had to meet and presentations and things like that, but I would say it was all very relaxed, friendly and informal and not corporate at all, which puts you at ease. I'm just meeting some interesting people who told me about their story, why they work for Oxfam. So yeah, I mean, as I say, I'd be really keen. There's a few people who are colleagues of mine, like who works more in engagement and fundraising in different areas. Like we have career development opportunities through our student activist network that we just set up, and that's part of a wider network across 30 to 35 universities. So if any of the students want to get in touch with me directly, as I say, I can put you in touch with colleagues and things like that, so you can have a discussion and see what's realistic.
Thanks, Mike. I'm sure you'll have people contacting you after the session about that. Hannah, how was the application process at Plan International?
Oh gosh, so I've been at Plan 5 years now. So I'll be really honest. I think the application process has changed. So I worked for quite a few charities before I worked for Plan. I think if you'd asked me when I finished my masters at Manchester, would I have gone to fundraising, then I think I would have said something quite different. But I think, to be honest, for an international development charities, I think it can be very competitive. I think I found it quite challenging when I was looking at them back in 2011. And I would say the role that I currently do is not necessarily an entry level role. But that said, I think something that Russell picked up really clearly on earlier was really look at what area of a charity you want to work in. A lot of us today are talking about fundraising or campaigning or events. There's a whole stream of kind of business development, of finance, of program and service delivery. Project management skills are desperate in loads of charities, media and good copywriting skills. So I think when you're doing your application, really think about what you really want to do and where you want to best use your skills and talents. And I guess really one of the hardest things I see is this kind of challenge between the volunteering and having volunteer experience before you join a charity, and kind of how we make sure that we're really diverse and inclusive around that. And that's an area at Plan that we are really homing in on, that we are desperate to be more inclusive, to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to pursue their goals and dreams in a charity. And I think that's something that we're really working towards, whether you can do volunteer work, which is fantastic and definitely something to take on if you can, but if you feasibly can't either because of circumstances, don't let that put you off putting applications in and really pursuing what you really want to do in the charity sector.
Great, thanks, Hannah. Lauren, have you got anything to add to application process at Invisible Cities?
Yeah, I think because Invisible Cities is relatively new and quite a small organisation, it's probably a little bit different to what a lot of other people have said. So even though my role is business development, I do quite a lot of other things as well, because we're such a small team. There's only 2 of us in Manchester. So my application process, the questions were very kind of open. So I would say if you're looking to apply for kind of smaller, more localized charities or organizations, then yeah, again, kind of look into the organisation. Why is it that you want to work for them? But that's something that we look for over kind of why you'd be suited for that particular niche role, because I kind of jump in and out of lots of different things. So I guess at Invisible Cities, we kind of look for people who are maybe a little bit more well-rounded, or even if you don't necessarily know specifically what you want to do in a charity, but you're really passionate about the whole ethos and what it's all about, that is what we look for over having tons and tons of volunteer experience in a really niche area. Obviously that's brilliant, but we definitely look more broadly at applications. And again, just echoing what other people have said, it's definitely quality over quantity, and kind of suggesting new ways that and what you can bring to our organisation, specifically because we are so small. I know that my application process, one of the questions was, if you could come up with a creative campaign, what would it be? And it's literally just so open. And I love that because you could get to be really creative with it. And I'm now working on that campaign, having been in that role. So yeah, when it's a smaller organisation, it may be slightly different, the application process, but I think what we really look for is the passion for the ethos of the organisation.
Great, thanks, Lauren. And finally, Cara.
Yep, so actually tying in with what a number of things that other people have mentioned. So firstly, Mike, so with internships and volunteering. So I actually got my current role having undertaken an internship at PumpAid a number of years ago. So when I graduated, I did internships at PumpAid and also Farm Africa. And the process for doing those was filling in, all of the questions, and I think it was very competency based, and then having interviews. So they were absolutely fantastic experiences and really helped me to better understand the kind of jigsaw of organizations, so all of the components and how crucial all of those are and how they all fit together. So fundraising and programs and policy and everything that goes into an organization. I then spent some time at the Red Cross, and then I was actually contacted by PumpAid with my current role. And so what I'd really reiterate is, as Mike said, the huge benefits that can come from volunteering and internships if you're in the position to undertake those. And they're really, really fantastic chances to make a first impression. And so what I'd really encourage you to do is, if you're looking at volunteering, whether it's kind of virtual in the current landscape, or if it's something that you think about kind of in future, is really see that as an opportunity to sell yourself and the amazing skills that you have and what you would be able to bring that organisation, because it can be a really, really good foot in the door, and then you never know in the future if that could, lead to something else. So I'd really, really recommend, on top of that, kind of using your connections, whether that's doing a kind of mapping exercise. So I find it quite useful to map it out through kind of concentric circles. So in the centre you have the people that are kind of closest to you, who you know, and then you go outwards from there. So that could be family members, friends, professors, all sorts of different people, and then it will be people that you work with in teams, your bosses, etc. And you can continue adding to that, as well as having columns with all of your skills, your areas of interest. And as Hannah suggested, really thinking about what it is that you are interested in, and importantly recognizing that actually you'll have so many transferable skills already, having studied at Manchester. And so it's really important to think about, communication, teamwork, all of the things that will be so inherent to doing a degree. And so you'll already have so many skills which you'll be able to use within applications. And I think it's, again, as others have mentioned, really properly reading the questions and competencies, and both at PumpAid and other organisations, I know that that is really, really crucial, and people reading through your application will be looking for those kind of keywords and the fact that you've addressed everything that's in the application. And just to kind of reiterate as well, is when you go to an interview, think of all of the skills that you have and what you can bring, and really, really go for it. So it's an opportunity, obviously they're seeing, if you're a good fit for the role, etc. But it's also a fantastic opportunity for you to go in there and really show them that you're the person for the role and you're going to do a fantastic job. And so, yeah, so good luck for any, applications that you're making and everything else. And if anyone is interested in volunteering at PumpAid, so we have water and sanitation programs in Malawi with a heavy kind of promotion of self-reliance and independence and ending aid dependency, which is so crucial. And if anyone would be interested in volunteering, then please feel free to send us an email. I recognise it is a very competitive sector, and so if it is something that would be of interest, then we can certainly see if there are, you know, things that you could get involved in. As we are a really small team, it's really useful to have people who can help with elements of work. So I'd really encourage you to do that.
Thanks very much, Cara. Some really great advice from all the panelists on that topic. And it's actually answered quite a lot of the questions that we're seeing coming up in the chat. So I'm going to go to this one from a student that says, did you set out specific, I know some of you have touched on that you've worked in other areas, did you specifically set out to work in the third sector? Or was it more that you wanted the type of role and you've happened to find one in your organisation or a previous one? So when you were studying, did you have charity work in mind? And did you find that if you were doing a degree that isn't on paper necessarily relevant to the to working in the charity sector? I know some of you have done development degrees, but are there any particular core skills that you took from your degree that translated well to work in charities? I think I'll go back to the original order, so I'll ask Cara that first.
Yeah, so I think for me, I always knew that I wanted to go into the sector. I was really lucky that at school I really loved geography, and particularly you know, all of the content that we were covering around development and the global economic system, and you know, how some people have so much and how, you know, others have so little. And so I think because I was always so interested in that, it was a very natural path for me to then, you know, study human geography and then do my masters and then go into the sector. And yeah, so I think I was, you know, very lucky in that respect. And I think going back to the question that was asked, I think it's, again, when you're thinking of core skills, that everything is relevant. And so actually, even if you're not studying, you know, international development, geography, etc., there are so many skills that come from a degree, and actually other things that you will have done kind of outside of your degree as well, which are all relevant. And also, I think when we talk about the charity sector, it is so vast. And so that's the other thing, is there are so many opportunities to get involved in absolutely fantastic charities that do, you know, amazing work with regard to all sorts of things. And so international development is kind of one side of that, but there's so many charities with, you know, very local focuses if it's in the UK, or you know, charities that, yeah, are kind of very specifically focused. And so I think that links back into what's been said before about thinking about what your kind of area of interest is, and then really kind of going with that, if that kind of makes sense. So I think, yes, everything's relevant. So definitely don't see it as a, you know, disadvantage or anything, that, you know, if something else has been kind of studied, because there's so many skills that you'll be able to bring to a role.
Great, thanks, Cara. Lauren, how did you find your law degree translated to your role at Invisible Cities, or didn't it?
Yeah, so law isn't, you know, necessarily the first degree you think about when you think of the charitable sector, but I was always really heavily involved in the legal aid centre at university, and I was kind of chair of a few different committees, so the Dance Society and, you know, law societies, that kind of thing. So I think I always had the interest in making a difference, whether it was, you know, kind of in the capacity of advancing the Dance Society and not necessarily in the charitable sector. And I really thought I was going to be a hotshot solicitor. But then when I ended up leaving university, I went travelling and kind of was really open. My eyes were open to the world, you know, greater beyond Manchester. And that was when I really started to think about what I wanted to do, and I had a couple of jobs in law firms and decided that it wasn't really for me, and I ended up volunteering, doing some kind of work within the community to provide food to people who were rough sleeping, and I did that for 3 years. So I think I kind of got into it very, very gradually by doing a lot of homelessness outreach work, and then the role came up at Invisible Cities, and it's obviously working within the homeless sector. So yeah, I think my journey I didn't always know that that's what I wanted to do, but it's kind of like once I found it, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. So I think if anyone listening is kind of in that position where they're worried that maybe their degree isn't necessarily what they what they want to go into, you don't need to panic. It's fine. Like, you will get there eventually. And I think something that comes up all the time within the charitable sector is attention to detail, and that's something that's really ties in well with doing a law degree. And for some reason, that's always something that people pick up on. So if you're studying law, say that you've got great attention to detail, and hopefully it'll all be good.
Great, thanks, Lauren. So Hannah, I think you did the International Development Masters at Manchester, so quite relevant to your work. But we've had a question which you might be able to.
The only thing I'd probably add to that is I guess I didn't get a job initially straight with an international development charity. So I left in 2011 for Manchester, and then I've only joined Plan 5 years ago. And I'm sorry, I'm going to plug it. I did a languages degree from Lancaster University, I know, which was my original undergrad. And I'd probably say that things that are really transferable into the world of fundraising have been communication skills. That idea that you can build rapport and that you can think on your feet, and that you really are kind of have a sense of how to phrase things in the best way for the audience that you're presenting yourself to. So I definitely say that is something to consider as well.
Great, thanks, Hannah. Mike, you've already mentioned that you have jumped around a bit in your career. Did you end up in your current role because you decided you wanted to make a move into charities? Is it just a natural progression of the roles that you've taken previously?
I think for me my passion foremost is music. So that's what really attracted me to the role. So basically using music to fight poverty, I think. But the thing for me is, I would say, don't be afraid of trying different things, and I'd advise, think about trying a few different sectors once you graduate, as it'll help broaden your experience and also your opportunities to get something. There's quite a frustrating perception, I think, amongst employers. Sometimes on the corporate side, the charity sector is not as organised as the private sector, which is simply not the case. Some of the most hardworking and focused people I've met work in the sector. However, if you've got like a really broad range of experience, and you try lots of different things, it does help with getting some jobs and making you stand out against other candidates. So, don't think I'd necessarily want to go into this, because you might find you go in a completely different direction, but ultimately you'll come back to it. I think, maybe 3 or 4 years, 5 years down the line, if that's ultimately what you want to do, and you'll find out, as we've heard, it's very, very diverse. There's lots of different areas, so it'll really help you to hone in on what you really want to do.
Great, thanks, Mike. Russell, I think you've already touched on the fact that your degree in management has been helpful in your work in charities. Do you want to just expand on that a little bit, about what skills you've found transferable and how they've helped?
Yeah, when I came to Manchester and did my degree, I thought I was going to be ending up in consultancy or a graduate program, and I've been between kind of the culture at Manchester and the volunteering I did in South Africa as a teacher. I came away sort of not wanting to. My kind of ethos was not to work for shareholders, but I'm not a morning person, so teaching was kind of ruled out. And as I say, the careers advice was this profession of fundraising. I mean, there's a few bits, there's a real jack of all trades about it. I think there's some marketing skills, finance, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of it is about the relationships. And when I do recruit, that's often what you're looking for my area. But then we do have, as people have said, loads of different areas that we haven't kind of got covered here. But there's also things now like a lot more insights into data, and I think that's going to become more and more important. So you know, there's a lot more roles that I think are out there that are not the sort of traditional things. Yeah, I mean, and I think as a few other people said, you know, do go for things. You know, don't ever feel that, you know, that you might not be, you know, the right fit or have the right skills or experience. And you know, there's a lot of recruitment that happens, you know, that is based on a lot more than what you have on the paper. And if you can get in, you know, and prove yourself in the application process, you know, and get yourself in front of a panel as an interview, you know, there's loads of things I think you can do. And you know, if there's one thing that, you know, some of the people in senior leadership roles around the world have proven is, you know, you can definitely punch above your weight in that sense. So yeah, I agree with everyone else. Go for things, you know, trial. And if you do get into organisations as well, there's a good chance of moving around. You know, I think a lot of people do find new opportunities or new areas of work in charities when they're inside a charity, and things can be very different. You know, some charities like ours, which are pretty big, will have their own legal teams, so you know, those who are doing a law degree can come in there. But we also rely on a lot of companies that we work with, so you know, a lot of charities will you know, there are some legal firms that specialize in charities, or event organizers, you know, that do charity events, even though they might not be charity themselves. So you know, as well as working within a charity, there's a lot of roles out there that you know, really help contribute to making the world a better place.
Great, thanks, Russell. Kat, I think you said you did a music degree.
I did, yeah. And I think this was when I was sort of first starting out to get my first job. It was a source of frustration for me because I was on job seekers at the same time when I was trying to get a job, and I remember getting into quite a constructive disagreement with the person at job seekers when they sort of didn't quite understand what a music degree involved and thought I was perhaps, you know, being too ambitious in my job hunt. So I think the first thing I would say is, you know, don't ever sort of play down what degree that you've got. Don't sort of doubt yourself, because you know, other people perhaps won't necessarily understand what skills you've got from your degree. Obviously I proved them wrong in terms of the direction my career's gone, but it was definitely a source of frustration at the time. I think in order to kind of add to some of the points people have made, I think I would say, I mean, I could be here all day talking about some of my experience, so I'll try and be succinct. But I think in terms of my early career, there are sort of a couple of things that certainly shapes me as a person. And I think trusting your instinct is really important, and also not feeling obligated that you need to kind of just stay in a job for the sake of it. I think one particular situation that occurred in my first role, and this is something that is common in any sector actually, but I think people probably agree with me that restructures do happen quite a lot in the charity sector, and unfortunately mine led to my role becoming redundant in my first job. I had the opportunity to go for some other roles, but I chose the option of voluntary redundancy, which meant that I had money as well. But nevertheless, that did have a bit of an impact on my confidence, and you know, that does have a knock-on effect when you're still quite young in your career. What was also quite interesting is a few months before then, I was thinking, you know, maybe I'm going to have the opportunity to get, you know, a promotion as a result of this, and I turned down an opportunity that where I was potentially headhunted by another organisation. So sometimes, you know, those sorts of decisions are, you know, not necessarily the right ones. The job that, you know, another job that I got not long after, I wasn't happy in, and I actually probably stuck in it slightly too long, but nevertheless I did make the decision to leave not long into it, because it was making me unhappy. And I think, and someone sort of in a later job that I was in said quite clearly, she was like, you know, I could see you were unhappy there, but one of the things that I've learned is that jobs that you are in, you spend more of the time of your working life, you know, more of your life in your job, and it's really important that you do find a job that you're happy. That's not advice to say you should chop and change every 5 minutes, but I think there is a perception that you should sort of stick out a job for 2-3 years, as if you're trying to prove something. And I think if you're not happy where you are, don't feel like it's something shameful just to move on. And I think it's very important that people do kind of, you know, learn from those things. Don't sort of take it personally. It certainly shaped me as a person, and you know, obviously I'm glad I made that decision, because things have, you know, worked out for me since then. So yeah, I think, you know, that's sort of one of the reasons why sort of my pathway has taken certain directions that it has. But it's important that everyone's going to have, you know, adventures along their career path. So I just wanted to kind of add that to sort of the panel.
That's great, Kat. I think it's really important to also discuss some difficulties that you might face in your career journey, as well as the positives of finding your dream job, because, you know, not everybody's career journey is exactly the way they plan when you go into it. So that's really useful. Thank you. And then lastly, Kate, I think you're the only person on the panel that's done a hard science. You did biology, didn't you? How does that translate into your current role? And did you know that you wanted to work in charities when you started studying biology?
No, I definitely didn't. I mean, at school, when I applied to university, I kind of just had the idea in my head that I wanted to go to university, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was just going to pick a subject that I, you know, believed was a really good science degree to do, and that had a lot of transferable skills, and so that's what I did. I picked biology. It was something that I enjoyed at A-level, and I really enjoyed my degree. But as I had more time in Manchester, and as, you know, I got involved with student life a little bit more, I had a lot of volunteering experiences at Manchester, and I think that's one of the things that has shaped my career. I think if I had gone to another university and not had the experiences offered to me that I was offered whilst I was at Manchester, I definitely wouldn't be in the charity sector now. So, for example, I did the Team Uganda, which was the international volunteering in Uganda, and I did the Manchester Leadership Award, and I got involved with societies at university. And I think it's all of those experiences that really shaped my career and ultimately meant that I applied for charity roles once my degree had finished. I think, like a few of the other panelists have said, I think all the skills that I learned throughout my degree were very transferable into my role. I think doing a hard science, I did, I think after my first year, I knew that I didn't want to do anything particularly lab-based or practical sciences, so I tried to stay away from that. And for my dissertation and, for example, other projects, I tried to do more writing projects, and a lot of them revolved around the NHS and healthcare charities. And I think that was really when I found what my interest was. And all of my charities that I've worked for have been healthcare charities. So there is that similarity in a way that I'm still kind of have got the sciencey charities that I work for. Ultimately, what they do is healthcare, and you know, it's sort of sciencey in that way. But my role is obviously a donor-facing fundraising role. Picking up on what everyone else has said as well, I think just going to university and having that experience of meeting new people, and, you know, having to live with new people, and just with those group projects where you're working together with people that you've not known before, are all really transferable. Because I think, especially with smaller local charities, we're really looking for people who are willing to come into the organisation and learn and work as a team. So who do we think is going to fit best with our team and really get on with the job and learn? So it isn't necessarily about, obviously the more experience you've got, the better, but it's not the be all and end all if you can't get that volunteering experience. I think, like I said, if you get in front of that panel and your personality really shines and it comes across that you're going to fit in really well with the team and really be a hard worker, then I think that really will get you far in the charity sector. Anything else in terms of my degree, I would just say Manchester is an amazing university for volunteering experiences, societies, and just getting out there. So do take the opportunities that they give to you and really run with them. I think that is the main reason that I'm in the charity sector today. So that would be the best advice I could give to people.
Thanks, Kate. I'm really conscious that we've run over time, and that's probably because we had technical difficulties at the beginning. So I think I'll wrap up there. I feel like I haven't had time to ask the panelists very many questions, and there's still quite a few questions in the chat from students. But I do feel like in the answers that each panelist has given, a lot of things have been covered. So thanks ever so much, everybody, for giving your advice. So yeah, we'll close there. So I just, again, thank you so much. And I think you've all given really great advice to students for what it's like to work in the charity sector. And I really hope that you've enjoyed taking part, despite the technical difficulties and the fact that we can't see all your lovely faces today. So I'm sorry about that, but thanks for persevering and taking part. So I think Delia's got something to say to the students in the audience about feedback.
Yeah, thanks very much, Emma, and thanks to all of you that have taken part today, obviously especially the panelists, but also those of you who've taken time to invest, the students who've taken time to invest in finding out more about careers in charities today. We hope that you got a lot from it. Sorry we've not been able to answer all the questions. They were coming thick and fast at one point, but I know that you can, hopefully you can connect with some of the panelists on LinkedIn after the event. Yeah, we'd really appreciate it if you could take the opportunity to give us some feedback. There's a very short feedback survey there, and there'll be also an opportunity to share any words of thanks with our alumni in there. Just one point before we definitely finish is I've had a message from Kat, so thank you to Kat for that. And she's saying just to let students know that we do have a volunteer position within her team. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, then please do go online.
Great, thanks, Delia. So just to say to our panelists as well, we usually do these events in person. So as you can see from today, the platform doesn't always work for us, but I'm sure working in charities and that you're all working online as well, you've probably come up with some similar difficulties in things that you've been running over the course of the pandemic. But we're always looking for ways to improve this new way of working, because it unfortunately looks like we might be working this way for a bit longer yet. So if any of you have any feedback about the session today, I'd be really grateful to receive it. And yeah, I'm really grateful of your time today, and really happy to have any of you back, either on another online event, or if we do the events in person, you'll also be welcome to attend them. So thank you ever so much for your time today, and we really appreciate it. I think we'll wrap up there as well. So please do feel free to leave the call and go back to your busy days. Thanks ever so much.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Great to be involved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm ending the broadcast now. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.